Now we'll start our discussion on research-based word recognition, and we're going to look at what every teacher needs to know for effective instruction. And what you're going to hear is a lot of correlation between what you heard Dr. Page talk about this morning and what I'm going to be talking about here now just before we go into lunch. And in your folder, you're going to find that you have an article that really goes into depth about sight words and high-frequency words. So this will be a great reading piece to share with your teammates at school and to read when you get a chance. Oops, come on. All right, let's see. All right, so now let's look at what we currently do in terms of word recognition study in our classrooms, a lot of what we see. So our current trend is based a lot on a look-say method of teaching words, which requires an average of about 57 exposures to learn a single word. The task of building a sizable sight word inventory becomes quite difficult to have access to with having to have 57 exposures. And think about that for our struggling students who are already behind and they're struggling with understanding letter-sound connection and things like that, and blending those sounds to read words that they have to see those words 57 times. So do you think that just flashing the flashcard is going to be sufficient to provide what they need? Probably not. So based on what Dr. Gansky, she says, have you considered that many of these words actually fit patterns that students will explore through their word sorts? They're going to see these patterns if you just teach the phonological process where they are encountering these patterns, they're learning the words through these patterns, they're going to encounter many of those types of words that fit into the pattern and are words that can be decoded. Let's look at what research says. So the more efficient strategy is to be taught the underlying letter sound structures that form letter patterns in words. We heard this earlier today, right? Teaching those patterns and drilling and getting them to a level of mastery of those letter sound structures is going to fortify this process of them learning these new words and building that sight word knowledge and bank of words. In addition, many sound patterns are transferable across words, which strengthens the representation in students' memory and shortens the time required to learn new words. So this process of learning the words and focusing on the patterns and the features shortens the process. So that's much more efficient than 57 exposures. Who has time for 57 exposures when we're trying to teach them so many words within a school year, right? We need to be able to find the most effective and efficient strategy to lock those words into their memory, okay? According to Shaw, it is this ability of the brain to generalize what is learned to new representations that results in what we call a self-learning mechanism that enables this rapid conversion of new words into words that become part of their automatic word recognition. So let's look at some definitions or defining factors of what a sight word is and what a high frequency word is. So we discussed this also. A sight word is any word that can be read automatically. As skilled readers, we have a bank of words that we can read automatically. For a skilled reader, virtually all words are sight words, right? Every word that you can read automatically becomes a sight word. You no longer have to engage in trying to decipher the sounds and connect the sounds and blend the sounds to decode the word and figure out how to read the word. That skill is not required because it's automatic now. Words But however now, keep in mind that words are decodable or non-decodable. They can be, sight words can be decodable or non-decodable words, right? Think of the word can. Have you found that the word can is on many of our Dolce lists, many of the high-frequency word lists? And I remember being a kindergarten teacher, and I was wondering, why is this word kind of on, before I knew what I know now? Why is this word on this list? I mean, this is actually a word that I've been teaching them when I taught the pattern and, it's and, can, but it's being taught as a sight word. I just thought about that and thought it was interesting, right? Versus a word like said, which is not exactly a word that you can easily decode, right? When we try to decode it, it's giving us different sounds. Well, you have certain sounds, but the word is not read that way, right? So now let's look at the high-frequency words. These are words that are very common in English, very common in stories and books that children will read. They will see them frequently, and they are necessary for them to build that automaticity and that fluency. But however, these words are also decodable or non-decodable words. And I'm actually going to share with our LLMs, we have a list of words that are on both lists, and it shows the commonality of what's not on one list versus the other. So that'll be a resource we'll have to share with you. So now, here's another thing, something else to think about. For fluent reading, all words need to become what? Automatic, right? As many words as we can acquire to become automatic will increase our ability or our children's ability to read fluently. So, why is this important? It's important because a decodable word versus a non-decodable word, the difference is words that can be sounded out using the rules of phonics. That's our decodable words. Now, when I say sound out, what am I really talking about? What do I mean when I'm saying sound out? Decoded. Words that can be decoded, right? That is a decodable word. They are phonetically regular. The sounds that you hear in the word are very close to the sounds that you hear when you do your letter sound recognition, and you blend those sounds together, and you are able to get to the end of that word and read the word. Sight words and high-frequency words can be both. A non-decodable words that can't be sounded out and don't follow the rules. So our word said definitely fits into that, right? Because if we try to sound that out, what do we get? Said. It's not really the word that we're trying to read. Said, right? So it's irregularly spelled. It's influenced by all of the other languages that are just kind of embedded into our language. So we have these irregularly spelled words. Sight words can be decodable as well as high-frequency words, right? So they can be both. So once we look at a decodable word, words that are learned through application and knowledge of phonics, this is why it's important. So when you look at this decodable versus non-decodable words, the way that we teach these particular types of words is going to be defined by our understanding as the teacher. When I look down this sight word list and I look down this high frequency word list and I come across a word that I know, this word can be decoded. How am I going to teach it? Should I teach this with a look-say method? Or can I use phonics to teach this word? So it impacts the strategy that we apply to teach that student that word. And in effect, it determines how fast they learn it, okay? If we choose the right strategy, they'll learn the word faster, quicker, and be able to use it in their reading. So words that can be learned through application of phonics are those decodable words, and Word Journeys provides us with a resource for teaching language structures in this manner. Okay? Word sorts helps children explore and learn patterns in words. It helps them to generalize across words. They learn a chunk, they learn the pattern, and they can take that information and apply it to new words and analyze that word and say, I know that part, and I know that part. Okay, so now I know how to say this part. Let me put it together with those new parts and see if I can decode the word to read it. And it gives them, it empowers them, and gives them a strategy and tool. Non-decodable words, words that need to be memorized, right? Be instantly recognizable. And the best way to teach these types of words is through a multi-sensory techniques. For learning non-decodable words is the quickest way to build automaticity using multi-sensory strategies. So let's look at some here. So this strategy is a technique for teaching those types of non-decodable words, and it focuses on applying the visual sensory component, auditory, the kinesthetic, and the tactile component to learning the new words. Okay, we combine all of these strategies together, these abilities together to help that word be transformed into our students' long-term memory through that process of really engaging them into the word using what we call the VAC modalities. So let's try one. If you guys look into your folder, you're going to find a half sheet that looks like this. And then you'll have a template page as well. So this is like 2 of these pages front back, so you have a template of it. In addition, you will see there's like a teacher script kind of, so you could share with your teammates as well. So to teach this strategy, you need some paper, right? It doesn't have to be this perfectly lined and cute paper, but you're going to need some paper. You'll need a crayon, and you'll need a pencil. But if you don't have a pencil, you use your pen. That's fine. But for your students, these are the materials you kind of need. Okay? So here we go. Good morning, boys and girls. We're going to learn a new word today. Our new word is spelled this way. Watch. L-A-U-G-H. Laugh. What word? Laugh. Yes, this word is laugh. Watch me use this word in a sentence. He made me laugh. Now, I'd like to know if you all know this word. Can anyone tell me this word in a sentence? Have you ever heard of the word laugh? Can anyone think of a sentence with the word laugh in it? I really want you to.
I laugh at my sister a lot.
I laugh at my sister a lot. Good. Anyone else? Come on, boys and girls. I know you know. I like to laugh with my friends. Wonderful. You know, I think you all got a good sense of what the word laugh means. All right. So now, what I want us to do, and if this is your classroom, of course you have this display. We are going to write the word laugh. Are you ready? I want you to get your crayon. Now, when you're writing the word laugh, we're going to spell out loud, and then we're going to read that word, and I'm going to write it with you. Are you ready? Let's begin. Laugh. L-A-U-G-H. What word? Laugh. Good. Let me see your word laugh. Does your word look like mine? So you want to start out on the big side so that they get to write really big. And if you didn't already, it's all right. No worries. No worries. Okay? So why am I asking them to let me see it? To make sure it's spelled right. Write a quick check. Okay? All right. Good job. Now what we're going to do is we're going to practice of this spelling and saying this word out loud. So I want everyone to stand up. So now if you're left-handed, you're going to place your paper in your right hand. Because we want the left hand to be doing the work, okay? And if you're right-handed, you're going to place the paper in your right hand because we want the right hand to be doing the work, okay? So if you notice when I did left hand, I tapped from my wrist to my shoulder. Left to right directionality, okay? Right-handed, from shoulder to wrist, left to right directionality, okay? And I know you guys are saying, huh? But think about it if you're reading. Think about it if you're reading. You see what I mean? Okay? All right, so here we go. I'm right-handed. I'll stand facing with you guys, okay? So here we go. Our word is laugh. Ready? Begin. L-A-U-G-H. Laugh. Again. L-A-U-G-H. Laugh. Again. L-A-U-G-H. Laugh. Good job, you all. Everyone have a seat. So now what we're going to do, so they've gotten several opportunities to see and spell the word, correct? Now we're going to flip our paper over. So on that line, that section where you have the 3 sections, I want them to number their paper 1, 2, 3. And so you know this is a strategy that has to be modeled, and you do it several times and they get the hang of it. Okay, so we're going to number 1, 2, 3. And now I want them, and I want you to challenge them to write the word without looking on the other side, to see if we can start to lock this word into their memory, okay? Now let's say, for example, they're like, wow, this is a new word this week, and I haven't had that many times when I've seen it. That's okay. If they are attempting to write it that first time and they're just like, I don't really remember, that's all right. Flip it back over and practice again. L-A-U-G-H, L-A-U-G-H. And flip it back over and then try to write it, okay? So here we go. So they would write it 3 times. Just write it 1 time and then we'll move on to the next. So as you're writing, what are you going to do? Be spelling aloud. L-A-U-G-H. What word? Laugh. Good. So they write, then you'll say, write it 2 more times. And again, do your check. Let me see. So they write, and then you do that quick check, and then you say, okay, now go ahead and write it 2 more times, but I want to hear you spelling and reading. Then, now you want them to attempt to write a sentence at the bottom. Now, let's say, for example, you're teaching kindergarten. They're not at a point where they can write their own sentence. We can make a group sentence. They can attempt to write it, or they can illustrate the sentence. And that's why I mentioned about this paper. Your students may not be ready to write online paper yet, especially if you're dealing with a very young group. So you can definitely feel free to use the online paper and definitely a larger sheet, because you know our emergent writers write very large. So this may not be enough space for them, okay? So this is a multi-sensory strategy. You notice we use the visual, we use the tactile. That's why you kind of want to write with the crayon, because it gives you a little bit of texture. And this comes out of Orton Gillingham's work. And when they use this strategy, they use the little grid charts that they put under the word that also gives you a little more grooves in the word. But right. But we don't have to use that. You can definitely use this crayon. And when they write their sentence, have them use that, write it with a pencil. Okay, so now we put down our crayon and we're going to write with the pencil writing tool, right? Any thoughts or questions? Do you think that this is something that you could share with your teammates? Do you think that it could be something that can kind of help them out with teaching non-decodable words? Those words that just don't follow the rules and just make it kind of, those are like the harder words for the children to read, right? Do you think it's something that can help your students? Yes?
Cheryl, I wanted to give a suggestion to
Yes.
teachers who may be trying to figure out how do I expose them to the sight words in text when I don't have a lot of books. So one example would be where you use the sight words that you're having for the week, and you create your own sight word sentences, and you can put them on a sentence strip. You can model it to the group and say, when you go to the sight word station, this is one of the sentences you will see.
That's right.
He made me laugh. And then you would have the words on the sentence strip, you would cut it out, put it in the envelope, Ziploc bag, etc., and you place it in the center. To a lower level reader, not saying kindergarten because we know it's on the whole continuum.
That's right.
So to a lower level reader, that is exposing them to the word in text. Text does not have to be authentic text like a book. It's just I know how to read it in context, using the orthographic, the syntax, all of that. So that's just one example that you can use to expose them
That's
to
perfect.
words in text.
That's right. And that's a wonderful idea, especially when they're learning the new word. So you could take the sentence that you created, the group created, or students in the class created, and that can go in, those sentences go into the station, and it becomes an opportunity to revisit and build fluency within those sentence reading as well. So that's a great idea. So let me see, what's the next piece that we just needed to do? So let's think about what next steps in terms of what you learned today. Great information. So our expectation is not that you're going to have to go back and re-deliver Dr. Page's presentation, but we wanted to give you some nuggets of information that you could have conversations with your teammates about. So normally we would have gone into within words, right? That would have been our next stage. So now that you all have the lesson framework, and we know that we have to do the guided word walk and walk them through that whole process and introduce your new word sorts that they're going to be using. Take that information and go ahead and begin applying it, okay? As far as what you learned today, and we're moving into looking at the next stage, meet with your teachers in small groups now. Find out what's their concerns, what's causing challenges or obstacles for them to move into using some of these strategies in their classroom, using the word journeys instructional component, and then talking about this next stage that's going to be coming up within words, because right now they're probably thinking, well, I already have kids who are there, so I need to know what to do next with them. So we're going to be providing you some support with that information, and that will come to you around early December, something specific for within words, but take the information that you have already and start to apply it. Some of you may have received the next book, Dr. Gansky's second book, Mindful Words. Did everyone get their book? Yes? Not yet? Okay, if you didn't, you will get it before you leave today. And that's going to give you the word sorts for syllable juncture and derivational constancy, and as well as all of her theory and understanding around those levels and those stages as well, okay? So just think about what you learned today as far as the research and how it applies to your current practice, and we talked about some of that. Share with your teachers the defining and clarification of sight words versus high frequency words, right? Now we are looking at the words with a different lens. Is this decodable? Is it not decodable? How am I going to teach it? Not just, well, they said these are the most important words and we just need to teach them all, right? And we need to teach them all the same way. Now we know that there is a difference and there's a different technique to apply. Share the multi-sensory strategy with your teachers. Tell them to try it out. See if the kids like it. The kids usually love being able to do this. And it is most applicable when they're learning the new words. It's not necessary for review of words you know, the ones that they've already mastered or kind of know. It's when you're introducing those new non-decodable words, you want to use this strategy to try to start locking it in as quickly as possible, okay? All right. Well, it's lunchtime. You guys ready to eat? Okay, and then this afternoon we will have our guided reading session, okay? Thank you.